Okay, so let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the members of the Pasteur Network community. Welcome to this new Pasteur Network monthly seminar. As usual, we will begin with our speakers, and then we will follow this presentation with some question and answers. You are welcome to drop your questions in the chat at any time or directly during the Q&A. Please do not forget to keep your microphone and camera off during the talk so everything can be run smoothly. The session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, the Pasteur Network YouTube channel, so you can rewatch it or share it with your colleagues. Today, we're going to talk about the evolution of One Health concept towards circular health to better address contemporary global challenges. And for that, we have the pleasure to welcome Ilaria Capua. Ilaria Capua is a senior fellow of global health at Johns Hopkins University, SAIS Europe, and courtesy professor and director emeritus of the One Health Center of Excellence at the University of Florida. She's a veterinarian and virologist by training. She has dedicated her career to studying animal viruses that can infect humans, such as avian influenza and rabies, within the One Health framework. In 2006, she pioneered open sharing of viral data, a practice now central to global health research on zoonotic diseases like COVID-19 and influenza. She published over 240 peer-reviewed articles and contributed to several scientific books and chapters. She currently serves as advisory boards for European projects like Regroup or Durable, and on the Lancet Commission on the 21st Century Threats to Global Health. Ilaria Capua was also a member of the Italian Parliament between 2013 and 2016, serving as Vice President of the Science and Culture and Education Committee. She developed the circular health paradigm and expansion of the One Health concept and continues to promote interdisciplinary approaches to health through her research, writing, and public engagement. Okay, so before I give you the floor, Ilaria, I would like to take a few minutes to present our new product. I'm taking the occasion of this seminar to take just 2-3 minutes to present our new platform. As you know, we have launched our new collaborative platform last Monday. And I would like to take some minutes to show you the platform. So let me share my screen once again, so you can see it. So this is the PN Link, our new collaborative platform. It's a mix between Facebook, LinkedIn, and SharePoint. And it's completely for free for everyone, every member. And I really mean every member of the Pasteur Network, scientists, students, support staff, technician, administrative staff. It's a space where you can create your own events, share your events, develop some news, be part of groups, specific groups, open groups. As you can see, for example, this is my dashboard. I can have access to the different people from the community. And as you can see here, we already have a lot of people connected on this platform. Some of you are already in it, and I'm really grateful for that. On the community, so you have the people, and each person can create, for example, let's have a look to Enrico from Roma, who is with us, I think. So he created, so you can put your academic profiles. So Enrico, you have to add your experience and education, please. And he's also part of a group because he will be present at the next Pasteur Network annual meeting. So that's why he's in the PNAM 2025 group. So you can be in several groups. There are groups based on the region, on topics, on some other activities. As you can see, we also have groups for each scientific working groups, and they are led by Renaud Batrinet, as you may know. We also have specific pages for organizations, where you can put there is a summary, all the people from this organization. For example, for Sermes in Niger, we only have one person for the moment. And here, by default, when you add an opportunity on the Pasteur network on PM Link, you can put everyone can put opportunities, so courses, calls, anything that can be interesting for the network. It based on what you're going to write and the organization, it will be by default put in the page for the organization. I'm not going to go too much in details. I will give the floor now to Ilaria. I'm sorry, Ilaria, that I took a little of your time, but if it was important for us to show it, because it's a very new product, and I'm pushing everyone to register. I will share the link in the chat during the presentation. So I'm stop sharing my screen. Ilaria, up to you now. I'm giving you the floor. If you can share your screen.
Yes, thank you very much, Hikem, for inviting me and to the Pasteur Network for having me today. I have worked, so you can see my screen, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And now you can see my full screen. It's coming. Yeah.
Not yes, now yes.
Okay, great. So I am a friend of the Pasteur Network. I have worked for many years with colleagues based around the world and also in Paris. And at a certain point in my life, I decided that I was going to transition from being somebody who was always at the bench and looking at microscopes to look more at policy. And I have been working at the science policy interface with the heart of a scientist, but with the enrichment that working in the political space brings. Because in the end, if there is no political engagement, if there is no citizen engagement, and things will be much more difficult to happen. And so I have been an advocate and a supporter of One Health for many years. But let's say in the last 6 or 7 years, from before the pandemic, I started thinking that maybe the One Health concept needed to be expanded. And I developed this idea about circular health, which keeps together science, policy, sustainability, and citizen engagement. And I will hopefully convince at least some of you that we really need to look at things in a different way, especially after the pandemic, because the pandemic has unveiled so many critical points, but also in view of the evolving, very quickly evolving geopolitical scenario. Things are changing, they are changing fast, and we cannot be stuck in the past, but we need to look forward, and we need to look at new ways of addressing complex issues, and we need to think big. I would say look up. You remember the movie Don't Look Up? This is about let's look up, because I think that we can contribute significantly to supporting, I would say, not only science, but even our citizens in this moment of difficulty and of crisis. So I would like to start from here And this is a terrarium, and terrariums are very, very fashionable nowadays. Everybody has them in their desk or in their office, and I think that they are very symbolic because they represent a closed system. The terrariums do not have an exhaust pipe, and they do not have a drain. And so everything that happens inside the terrarium will remain inside the terrarium, whether these are good things for the creatures living in there or whether they are bad things. And I would like to keep this image in mind as I continue with my presentation. I will, if you think about the terrarium, please pay attention to this video, which is a video that I downloaded from the NASA website. And basically, it shows the movement of aerosols in our planet. And what was to me incredibly striking is that, for example, the Saharan dust reaches the Caribbean area. You will see black carbon fumes and PM and particulate matter that from the wildfires in Africa, in South America, in Canada, they are able to spread to the rest of the world. And similarly, other substances like salt. And there's a reason why I mentioned salt, and I will pick this up later. But basically, this image, I believe, also gives the feeling of how connected we are, for example, through air, and how closed the system is. It is these fumes, these aerosols do not exit the atmosphere, and they remain trapped inside the atmosphere. So with this, inside our terrarium, unfortunately, we are experiencing a convergence of crises. And this is due to the aftermath of COVID-19, which, of course, first of all, we need to mention long COVID, which is here, and we learn every day about it, every day something new. But also COVID has had a profound impact on health systems. We know that many of our doctors, of our nurses, of our practitioners are leaving hospitals. They don't want to work there anymore. There has been a very powerful wave of disinformation, which is impacting our health every day. Inside the terrarium, we also are experiencing a climate crisis. And the climate crisis causes extreme weather events, which transform ecosystems. And together with that, they create a crisis, which is a food crisis, because there are parts of the world that were already in a food crisis, but with increasing temperatures and lower crop yield are doing very badly. And we know that this influences our health. And of course, inside the terrarium, we have this movement. And these are only examples of things that are happening inside the terrarium, just to get you thinking around this idea. So I'm sure that you know that there's an institute in Stockholm, which is called the Stockholm Resilience Center, which has put forward this, let's say, visualization of the 9 planetary boundaries. It is believed that there are 9 boundaries that cannot be overcome for the world to be sustainable. And you will see that from 2009, in which 7 boundaries were assessed and 3 were crossed, as you move in time, you will see that now in 2025, we have 9 boundaries assessed and 7 of these boundaries have been crossed. And once these, so here you can see the boundaries, which I think that are quite obvious for most of us. We only have 2 that we have not crossed yet, but certainly the situation is very, very worrisome. So in order to address these planetary boundaries, we need to think big, and we need, first of all, to underline that the health of humans, animals, and plants and the environment overlap and are interconnected. But as you see from this very well-known representation of One Health, you will see that One Health is just this little triangle here. I believe that there is much more on the interconnections between human, animal, and environmental health. And actually, I will show you how the One Health concept has evolved over time. Because in the 1960s, this was the prevailing iconography for One Health. In 2020, the Lancet, so this is pre-pandemic, because if they published it in 2020, it means they wrote it up before. And the Lancet started thinking about a broader approach around the One Health concept. And you will see that already in 2020, they were talking about health systems and surveillance, gender, community, equity, and ethics, policy, legislation, and governance, investment case and financing, knowledge integration and leadership, and of course, integrated digital health with evidence and prediction. But it still is very much around the human-animal environment interface. In 2022, Marion Koopmans, who is a very good friend and colleague of mine, who was the former director of the Erasmus Medical Center in the Netherlands, she and her colleagues came up with this. And I think that this is a much more articulate way of looking at One Health, in which you see mobility and transport, population growth, conflicts and natural disasters, trade, food demand, tourism, travel and tourism, and deforestation, urbanization. And so this concept expands itself, but is still confined within certain borders. Now, for the sake of completeness, I have to mention this paper, which was a paper published by the Lancet in July this year. I am an author, I'm a member of this commission. And so this was published this year, and you will see the immensity of topics that they believe that contribute to One Health. Basically, One Health is growing outside of itself, because it does not only relate to human, animal, and environmental health, it relates to a variety of different systems which interact and are interconnected with our health. So actually, before this committee, this Lancet Commission took form, and before I joined it, I wanted to add one more thing. As we explore into One Health, we need to look at how sustainable we are, because we have a very big problem with sustainability. And I'm sure that you know what Overshoot Day is. Overshoot Day is the day in which your country has surpassed the amount of resources that it can use to be sustainable. Here is France in April So if you take 1 year, in April, France has already used all the resources that it was entitled to for that year. Here is Italy on May 6th, and here is Tunisia, October 28th. So there's a very big difference between countries, but certainly we are burning much more than we can. So Circular Health, my first book came out in 2019, so before the pandemic, and before the Lancet report, and the concept was to expand the One Health concept and to avoid putting categories and boundaries. So human, animal, environment are 3 categories. We live in a terrarium. We are totally interconnected. And as you will see from the logo of Circular Health, these lines, which are the green of plants and the blue of oceans and the red of blood and the yellow of climate change, they are totally interconnected. And the point is that we need a systemic approach to health, which bears its roots in the One Health concept, but that also is more inclusive. We need to recognize the need for a multidisciplinary convergent effort, which is beyond the biomedical dimension of health. For example, look at what disinformation has done to our health. And information and communication and media were traditionally outside the One Health concept as it was imagined. But another thing is that Circular Health is implemented through the Sustainable Development Goal Roadmap by exploiting the immensity of data that we have available in these days with the tools that we have, such as artificial intelligence. Now, one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that scientists cannot ignore the general population. We need to have a narrative. We need to explain what we are doing. And the Circular Health narrative is that which is inspired by the ancient Greek culture. The ancient Greeks used to say that earth, air, water, and fire influenced our health. And so as a scientist and as I would say a former politician, when I speak to people, I do a lot of public speaking, and I speak to lay people, I link my ideas to earth, air, water, and fire. And let me show you how. If we look at SDG 3, which is about our health, our health is very much influenced about what is happening on Earth. Animal health, both domestic animals and pets and wild animals, of course, and the health of these animals influences our health. But very similarly, 80% of the food that is consumed on Earth is of plant origin. And so plants need to be healthy, and they need to be grown in a healthy soil. We need to be mindful of what we are disposing of in the environment. And maybe we can pick this up later, particularly with reference to antimicrobial resistance. We have a problem with factories that may release pharmacologically active substances into the environment. Now, between earth and water, there are mosquitoes and there are insects and there are vector-borne diseases. And we know that vector-borne diseases are becoming more and more common in the north of the world, but also in the global south because of global warming. And therefore, we have had in Italy and in France and in other countries outbreaks of diseases which were considered to be exotic until only a few years ago. If we look at water, water is changing. Water makes up 70% of the planet. Only a very small part of this water is fresh water. But the salinity is changing because the ice cap is melting. Plus, we are destroying the biodiversity of our oceans by overfishing. These are fish inside a net. And we know that, and this is part of the overshoot day calculations, we know that we are using too much protein from the oceans, and by fishing in such indiscriminate way, we are losing the biodiversity of the ocean. And also, I like to bring this as an example. This is a seawater turtle that has a herpes virus infection. Now, even for those of you who are not virologists, you will know that herpes virus infections, which are, for example, the sore, the cold sore that you get on your lip as human beings, these lesions are visible when you are stressed. And these turtles, from the Philippines to the Gulf of Mexico, are affected by the clinical form of the disease because they are stressed. And this is the only way that they can tell us. They are stressed about the water temperature. They are stressed about the pollution of the water. They are stressed about the currents that change. And we cannot ignore these signs, these signals, I believe, because the turtle has no other way to communicate with us than, unfortunately, with these dramatic lesions, which, of course, eventually kill the animal. But also, if we look at air, we as Homo sapiens, we have been capable of making air dirty, which is not that easy if you think about it. And how air pollution influences our health, I think that a lot of us have seen during COVID. In parts of the world where there was a greater pollution of the air, this has created a synergy with the emerging virus, and cases have been more severe and more frequent. But we also have air which is becoming violent. And with this, I refer to hurricanes and to extreme weather events. We know that hurricanes, some of which the tail of some of these, we also feel in Europe. We have typhoons, which have always been around, but that, as we know, carry lots of water, but they carry also insects, they carry pathogens, they carry pollens, and they therefore contribute to a disruption of the ecosystem, which is ongoing. And then we have fire. And fire is not only about the increasing temperatures, which I'm not going to mention again, but it is also about wildfires. We, in Europe, we have experienced in 2025 the worst year for wildfires ever. And wildfires destroy ecosystems, but they also result in particulate matter ending up in the atmosphere. And it seems incredible how in 2025 we are not able to control these wildfires. A lot of you will remember at the beginning of the year, we had those terrible wildfires in California. In California, in the richest part of California, in Beverly Hills, there were $250 billion of damage, and there seemed to be nothing which could be done. And I think that this is not performing very well, both for the health of the people there, but also, of course, for the economic losses. And so as we look at all of this, we might get a little bit frightened, but we have something that is coming into our aid, and this is the immensity of data that we are able to collect and analyze. Even with your own little cell phone, we are able to measure things that were unimaginable to measure only 10 years ago. And so circular health basically challenges the scientific community to say, look, we have all this information, we have ugly things that are happening in our planet. These things interact with one another, and we have to find a way to address them in a more systemic manner. So in a nutshell, from earth, air, water, and fire, through the big data that is produced every day by the monitoring institutes and research institutes and individuals, and through the power, the growing power of artificial intelligence, we can identify, I believe, novel areas of knowledge and new ways of working together in a truly interdisciplinary way. So this is one of my most successful slides. I generally use it for when I speak to lay people, but I think it's quite clear. Until recent times, we thought that Homo sapiens was at the top of the pyramid here. You see the woman is here, which is not very good. And the rest is the rest, okay? And we could do whatever we wanted as human beings, and who cares about the rest? In fact, we are part of the system, and as part of the system, we need to be responsible of how the system is managed. So I mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. So these goals are here and to stay until 2030. After 2030, unless the whole world governance systems collapse, which I don't know, maybe is possible, we will have a revised version of the Sustainable Development Goals, because sustainability is a problem. And therefore, the engine of circular health wants to also promote the application of these goals. So promoting health and promoting sustainability. How can this be done? I will give you a couple of examples. One, which I'm sure you all know about, but I think that it is very emblematic, and it is antimicrobial resistance. So this man here was my biology teacher at high school. I kept in contact with him because he inspired me to be a scientist. He was a very important person for me. I was, of course, much younger than what I am now, but as you see, we kept in touch. And 3 months ago, they phoned me up, his family phoned me up, and they said he had to have his pacemaker battery, so the battery substituted. He went to the hospital, they changed the little container, the little box, they put in a new battery. 24 hours after he had fever, 48 hours after he was in coma, 3 days later, so in total 5 days, he was dead. This happened in a hospital in Rome. They tried with 3 different types of gold antibiotics, and there was nothing which could be done. So we know that AMR was already believed to be a big problem in 2015. They had predicted 10 million people dying of AMR, so more than cancer. And this was before COVID. So if you look at the most recent publications, now we are talking about 40 million people, so 4 times as much as this number, which was considered to be a very big number. The estimates in 2024, 2025 are that in 2050, we will have 40 million people dying of AMR. And AMR, for, I don't know, just for the people who are not familiar with it, is resistance. So here you see a plate with bacteria, and you have here a halo of inhibition, which is by antibiotic A, which is this one here, and antibiotic B does not cause any inhibition in the bacteria, and so the bacteria continue to grow, and that's how my biology teacher died. So for those of you who know, the causes of antimicrobial resistance are many. They come from human health and human health services, but also from the animal world and the plant world, because in 30% of the countries of the United Nations, it is legal to use antibiotics in plants. And these countries include China and include the United States. So we're talking about big countries. And if you spray a tree with penicillin to cure the tree from a bacterial infection, that penicillin is going to end up in the soil, and from the soil, it's going to end up in the water and in the environment. So these are the main causes of AMR. We use too many antibiotics. We throw antibiotics down the drain. A lot of drugs are thrown down the drain when they are not finished or unused or expired by, let's say, the box is expired, but it doesn't mean that the drug is not active anymore. Washing our hands, hygiene during COVID was incredibly present. Hand hygiene, people were washing their hands all the time, and now this is finished. People don't wash their hands anymore. They go in and out of healthcare settings, and then so lack of hygiene and sanitation, and the difficulty in developing new antibiotics. So these are, let's say, the causes. And as you know, there was a report which is the Review on Antimicrobial Resistance, which was published in 2015, and it gave 10 recommendations. So these are the 10 recommendations, which I will summarize in the next slide. But we have homework that each one of us can do, even if you're not working with bacteria, even if you are doing another job. Each one of us can contribute to fighting antimicrobial resistance. And as institutions and as organizations and as scientist organizations, we can actually, and this we published this a year ago, when more or less, 2 years ago, when I was still in the United States. We can use the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are the recommendations that you see here. I have summarized them for you in these icons. And here is the Sustainable Development Goal roadmap. And each one of these actions can be inserted inside the targets and the objectives of the goals, so that we have a convergence mechanism. Because if we act in a non-converging manner, this problem will be much more difficult to solve. And so I invite you to look at this paper if you want. But basically, in this way, we are taking recommendations to fight AMR. We are using targets and objectives in the SDGs to promote this convergence mechanisms and to be in a better position 10 years down the line. Now, another thing that I would like to mention, just as I want to stimulate your thinking, because of course I have some ideas, but I have no solution. One of the things that I think is going to be a very big problem is the concern on plastic, microplastics, and nanoplastics. And I have an apology here, which I will catch up on later. And so let me tell you that I've reviewed some literature to look into this problem. And basically, microplastic dietary intake has increased sixfold since 1990. And we can do something about it if we work, for example, on plastic debris removal. This down here is a very interesting review on what we have learned, and it gives you different angles on the microplastic issue, the plastosphere issue. And basically, how does this relate to the One Health and the circular health concept? Well, we have sources of microplastics which are many more than you would imagine. They include textiles, they include tires, they include pellets. And these plastics, as they break up in the environment, they enter the food chain because they are greatly ingested by sea creatures, of course, but also by land animals and eventually by human beings. And I just want you to notice that here, these microplastics, they have different colors and different shapes. And I will show you why I think this is particularly interesting. And so considering the amount of plastics that are in the oceans and that are, floating around in our rivers, we really need to work on this problem, and we need to communicate this problem, engage with citizens, and understand what risks there are, real risks and perceived risks, also to not create some more fake news. So this I thought was particularly interesting because this shows you inhaled microplastics and where are these plastics? So a lot of these plastics are actually in Southeast Asia. There is a very high concentration of, here you will see inhaled there microplastics every day. But with reference to ingestion, you will see from this picture here that a lot of microplastics are ingested through fish, which is not, of course, only fish. It is shellfish and other creatures as well. But there is the sea contributes very much to contaminating the fish diet, which eventually contaminates our diet. And I would like to mention two papers which have been published recently. One is about microplastics accumulating in the human brain. So microplastics have been found virtually in all organs. I think that for the sake of this presentation, what we think is more concerning is inhalation of microplastics and the damage that these create to the lung, and dietary intake. And you will see here, microplastics are found in seafood and in salt. Now, because table salt is extracted by the oceans, that table salt carries a lot of microplastics. And so if you remember the video we saw at the beginning, that's why I specifically mentioned salt as an aerosol, which can be damaging for us. Now, this paper is a paper which is, let's say, a frontier paper, but it does show that brains contained brains with dementia cases showed higher levels than the controls of microplastics, and the brain was accumulating these microplastics more than other organs. This is not a conclusive study. There needs to be, greater cohorts, but microplastics should be included, let's say, in our expanded approach to health. And okay, let me move to this. Okay, so I'm not going to comment on this because I'm not a pathologist and it wouldn't make sense. But if you look at these pictures here, you will see how the different shapes of the microplastics, you see shards, there's like flakes, they accumulate in different organs. And obviously they cause damage. And actually there's a recent paper which comes from an Italian group that shows that microplastics actually contribute or are associated, with atheromas and cardiovascular events. And you can see them in these pictures, that they can be found in the altered tissue of the biopsy, or rather of the postmortem, which has been carried out. And on top of that, as you know, plastics can carry pollutants because they bind substances that they encounter. And therefore, the damage of plastics is not only, I think, related to what the plastic does in itself, but to what the plastic can carry with it as it is ingested. And here is my credit to marine animal pathologists, because they actually started working on this microplastic component. There's a lot of work which comes from marine mammals, but also from fish pathologists. And basically, in this paper, for example, they show how potentially pathogenic bacteria can reach organs of different fish in a lagoon. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's not only the plastic, but it's the plastic plus whatever it carries, which can be, of course, bacteria as well. And so if we look at the broader microplastic challenge, you will see that addressing the challenge through the goals can also lead to a convergence towards health. And with this, I am nearly finished. This is actually my last slide. And what I can say is that if we look at the last 5 years, the pandemic has unveiled the immensity of contemporary health challenges, highlighting the importance of the One Health approach, which cannot be in isolation, though. It needs to be streamlined with sustainability efforts. The planetary boundaries and overshoot day calculations indicate that it is urgent that we invest in sustainability, and that it is urgent that we understand the complexity of health-related issues as we learn more, as the situation evolves. And so circular health is a more inclusive and contemporary approach, which I believe is very much needed now to keep the pace with the evolving scenario. And let me add that if, as scientists, we don't promote sustainability, I think that we are abdicating one of our main responsibilities. Just think of the plastic we use in labs. And there's papers about this. There is work which is being done about how can we optimize the plastic consumption and pollute less, even as scientists. So above all, though, circular health, it couples the One Health vision with the pressing need to follow and contribute the SDGs to seek convergence. The time for silos, generally speaking, is over. One Health was developed to break down silos I think it is a silo in itself now in 2025, and therefore it needs to be refreshed as a concept and looked at in a broader and more efficient manner. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. And I've even been on time, which I'm very happy about. and yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ilaria, for your presentation. And actually, it pushed us to be a little more aware, not a little more, much more aware of our role as a human, and the consequence of on the environment and on our own health and animal health and all type of health. Okay, so we are opening the question and answer session. Few questions because it's almost so we don't have much time. So, any questions? I'm looking for the. Don't be too shy. Yeah, Antoine. Antoine Desgraviers, the director of Institut Pasteur in Guadeloupe.
Hello, thank you very much for your talk.
Hello.
I just want to ask a question. In your opinion, what could be the most promising areas for research within circular health in the next year? Is there some areas and?
Yes, so thank you for this question. And some of this, let's say that the easy things are already being done. As you know, antimicrobial resistance, there is a lot that is happening. There's funding, at least in Europe, that is coming to manage this issue. Both from the, let's say, from the broader perspective, as I would say. Another easy thing is mapping, connecting weather data with insects and the incidence of certain vector-borne diseases so that these can be predicted. I mean, we need to prevent because there is not a lot of money around in the world just now. And money for public health and generally speaking for a broader approach to health is not going to be available as much as it was. And in Europe, for example, we know that the rearming of Europe is going to take a lot of resources from science. And so predicting outbreaks that of vector-borne diseases as we look at the meteorological data can be useful so that people can implement control strategies and prevention strategies. So matching big data, which is generated, but very big data, which is generated by our, let's say, international weather monitoring, climate monitoring entities would be something also important.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antoine, for your question. Any other question? Renaud, go ahead, please.
Yes, quickly. Hi, Ilaria. Hi, Hichem. Thank you very much for the very interesting talk. Quick question: should we drop the One Health concept? I mean, you've made it clear that this is obsolete, but not that much. I think it's an evolution more than a transition. It's just that it's still difficult, even if the One Health concept exists for many times now. It's still difficult for some scientists to embrace this new concept. It's still new, and we still need time to adapt and to embrace the concept. And now we're already talking about the new one. And you said that at the beginning. It's fastly evolving, and we need to adapt. But the pace can be very hard to follow. So, what would be your suggestion to embrace and operationalize this new concept in the daily life of scientists?
Can I give you an example with cars? Okay, so a model of a car like the Citroën DS, which is now 70 years old. So it's more or less as old as One Health. as it evolved for a while, and it was called DS, and then as cars evolve, you don't have a DS which has a 2025 DS because the car is completely different. And so I think that the Lancet paper, which still calls it One Health, has shown that what we are dealing with now has the wrong name, because One Health was one thing, and what we have to deal with now needs another. It needs a rebranding. So, having said that, the situation is changing, challenges are evolving, and on one hand, we still need to train our scientists to look at the micro One Health, human, animal, environment perspective, but we need to bring in other dimensions. For example, architects, urban planners. We are not going to be able to manage vector-borne disease if we don't bring in people who build houses that are going to be more insect safe. And in Paris, actually, the mayor of Paris has brought in the whole city to make it more sustainable and healthy. This is not One Health anymore. This is, I believe, something different, which merges all these concepts we have worked on since the 60s into a more sustainable dimension.
Thank you. So adopting One Health means that we are on the right track. It's not enough, according to you, but still, we shouldn't leave this aside, let's say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renaud, for your question. Maybe a last one. Yes, Pritesh.
Yeah, hello, Pritesh here from Fiocruz, Amazonia. What we are hearing is very striking. And as you mentioned about the Stockholm Institute, that we have already crossed the 7 barriers and 2 remain. Also, what we see is we are moving from fossil fuel to electric cars, which again depend on mining and other impact on the environment. And so we are trying to change one problem with another problem. As a whole, what I see is we should go back to the old ages where we did our own farming backyard and we had less industries. So how do you see in a perspective in terms of the new generation where we can improve in this sense? Because as I understand a little, we're just trying to change one problem with another problem. So, but we are not trying to reverse it completely. How can we look at this in a bigger perspective so that we can try to train the young generation as well to think about it out of the box? Sorry, just
No, I mean, I understand what you say. We transition for cars with from let's say fossil fuel to electric cars. Electric cars have a battery, and the battery is generated by pulling out lithium and other substances, and then the battery needs to be thrown away eventually. But you move forward in steps. Okay, so it's not that we are substituting one problem with another problem. We are substituting one problem which has reached its limit, and the pollution that we have at the moment and that we have created is very, very serious, with another solution which is not perfect. But it is better than the previous one, or at least that's what we know. I mean, there are many things that we learn as we progress, and maybe we go back. But what I am saying is that One Health loses enormous opportunities if it does not embrace the broader scenario of sustainability. It cannot be that as scientists, like myself, I was in a lab looking at mainly influenza viruses and studying one protein of influenza virus. And maybe I was not thinking of how much those avian influenza viruses were polluting the environment, because of intensive farming of poultry, which in some parts of the world is very impactful. So my talk is an exercise to get out of your micro world and look at the bigger picture.
Thank you, Pritesh, for a question. Maybe a very last one. There is one question in the chat from Praveen. There is an attempt to define One Health by the One Health high-level expert panel from the WHO. I didn't know this definition. He's asking, or she's asking, I'm sorry, what's the difference between this definition and your approach? If I understood well.
So this definition, what they are trying to include in One Health is very similar to circular health. It does not have the implementation roadmap through the sustainability goals, as the Lancet paper did not have. We do not have an implementation strategy. And once again, there's only so much that you can call something old with an old name as it changes, because things change and you have to give, I believe, also a new name and a new dimension to it.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you so much, Ilaria, for your presentation. And thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you for everyone who's here.
Thank you once again. Honestly, it was really interesting. And I think that should be, I think, more and more discussed in the next weeks and months between us as a researcher. So your presentation, so your seminar will be recorded, and we'll put online on our YouTube channel. We will share it to everyone. The next seminar will be in November, so you will be informed about the dates and the hours and everything. Thank you so much, and see you in 1 month. Once again, thank you,
and
thank you so much, Ilaria.
congratulations to the Pasteur Network, which is, I believe, one of the most powerful health networks that there are in the world. And but it contributes greatly, I believe, to our healthy terrarium. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to be here. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Ilaria.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.